jobs when it comes to on a state level for New South Wales and Victoria. And a lot of pundits are suggesting it's all leading to a hunger for fresh alternatives to established parties. It's seen a bit of a rise in so-called micro parties, including the Riverina State Party, a push for a new Australian state that would comprise pretty big chunks of New South Wales and Victoria. Wool broker David Landini is the driving force behind the idea. And while the concept of a Riverina State certainly isn't new, David's plan is to run candidates in electorates right across the Riverina and parts of northern Victoria at a state and a federal level. I spoke to him earlier to find out more details, and here's what he said.
The people in the Riverina have a very detrimental amount of governance from Sydney and Melbourne. People in the Riverina, which includes, in this exercise, in this project, includes northern Victoria, particularly the irrigation areas of northern Victoria. Our livelihoods are basically based on natural resource management, particularly agriculture, and as a subsection, if you like, of agriculture is irrigated agriculture. If you look at the Murray Valley through all the towns in northern Victoria along the Murray River, such as Cobram or Kyabram and Tongala, the wealth creation and the jobs and the ability of people to live in those areas relies on irrigated agriculture, and that also happens as well in the Goulburn Valley from really from Eildon, the source of the Goulburn River, all the way through Shepparton until it flows into the Murray River. Now, what we've seen in the last number of years, and when I say number of years, probably the last 30 years, is increasing restrictions on irrigation and consequently on the wealth creation in these areas, and consequent to that, the jobs available in these areas, and again, consequently, the ability of people to live in these areas. But the problem we've got is Victoria, politically, is dominated by the population of Geelong, Melbourne and the Mornington Peninsula. And in New South Wales, the state is dominated by Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong. People in those urban areas have very different economic interests and financial interests. But the problem that we have in these areas is the decisions are made in that populated area and by that population. So when it comes to a vote in the Parliament, it doesn't matter what we say or do, or what our representatives in that Parliament may say or do or intend to do. When the hands go up in a vote, we simply have no say.
David, just to get into some of the nitty-gritty on it, I mean, we're talking about a major redrawing of the borders between, Victoria, where I am, New South Wales, just across the border. Yes. I'm in Shepparton, I'm not far away at all. How big would you see, what would be, I guess, the dimensions, the boundaries of the Riverina State in your ideal scenario?
Ideally, because the issue originally started as through the restrictions on irrigated agriculture.
Yeah.
Certainly all the rivers in, particularly in northern Victoria, for example, Lake Eildon, the Goulburn River and all the irrigation areas of northern Victoria, including the water that comes out of the Murray River. And in New South Wales, once again, the rivers and the water infrastructure in New South Wales, which would be Hume Weir, which is of course in New South Wales, but it borders Victoria. Also, you may not be familiar with this, but Burrinjuck, in between near Gundagai, between Gundagai and Yass is a huge water supply area as well, and Blowering Dam, which is in the Great Dividing Range, just west of Tumut. And that's actually a rather large area. And if I can define it by electorates, in Victoria, and this would be the minimum, it would be the federal electorates of Mallee, Nichols, Indi, and to be quite frank, possibly even Gippsland. But it really depends on popularity. The people in Gippsland, in my opinion, should be very interested in being part of a state separate from Geelong, Melbourne and the Mornington Peninsula, even though it's a long way from this area. But it depends on where it's popular. It may well be, and I can assure you it's very popular in it. There's a lot of people agree that the governance that comes out of Melbourne, the governance that comes out of Sydney is actually very detrimental for us. And to be quite frank, we can actually govern ourselves a lot better, and we will provide for ourselves a lot better, create a lot more prosperity, a lot of wealth. These are potentially very, very wealthy areas. We can maintain that and increase that wealth creation and keep the jobs that are associated with that wealth creation. We'll keep them here as well and grow those. And the bottom line is we will keep the people here. My livelihood and the livelihoods of all the people in these areas really does depend on agricultural production.
Yeah.
So we keep that production up, particularly via irrigated agriculture, but also the forestry industry as well.
I mean, you're a wool broker, aren't you, David? So you know what agriculture, what irrigation means.
Absolutely. Our livelihoods depend on that wealth creation. And I certainly know that what happens on farm, what happens with the wealth that they create, that affects my livelihood directly. But not only my livelihood, this is everyone's livelihood. I can look at any of the towns in these areas and particularly outside of the larger towns like, say, Albury, Wodonga or Wagga, I think a lot of these towns are in decline. And the Riverina State group, or this concept of a whole new state, is very popular with the people in those towns, and particularly the middle-aged and older population, because that age group from say 40 to 80 years old, that age group have seen the decline in these areas. They know what it was like before, and I really think one of the most unfortunate things is that the younger population, who when they leave school, they can't find a job in these local areas, so that younger population leaves. So they're not here anymore, which is, I think it's actually a disaster.
Oh, I think many people would agree with you on that. I mean, there's a lot of concern about sort of where younger community members are heading off to and why they don't feel like they can stay in their community. Where are you in terms of forming the actual political party, David?
The Riverina State Group has, at the moment, 1,666 members. The group has applied for registration as a political party called the Riverina State. The Australian Electoral Commission requires, to register as a party, you have to have at least 1,500 members. And of those 1,500 members, that is members that are on the electoral roll. So you can be a member of the Riverina State Group, but if you're not on the electoral roll, the Electoral Commission will not count those members as far as a political party goes. So the AEC came back and said, look, we can't find some of these members on the electoral roll. So we've since then, I and a couple of other members have gone onto the electoral roll, and we've 100% corrected to date 1,565 members. So we actually have over the minimum number these are 100% matched up with the Australian Electoral Commission electoral roll. So we're about to resubmit that membership list, and we will have certainly over the minimum number, and then hopefully registration will come very soon after that.
And David, a very final question. I mean, the closest we've probably come to a new state in Australia back in '67 in New South Wales, the push for a state of New England. When that referendum got counted, that was, I think, 45% yes, 55% no. That is quite down the line. Does that give you a bit of confidence?
Absolutely, it certainly does, Nick. And the Riverina State Group, our plan is based on the New England state effort back in the 1930s through up to the referendum in 1967. For a number of reasons, the city of Newcastle was included in that referendum. Now, the areas outside of Newcastle voted by a huge majority to form a New England state separate from New South Wales. The Riverina New State attempt is based on the New England effort, and we are building up to a referendum on state formation. Being a registered party is a step into building up to that referendum. We will win that referendum. As a registered party, we will stand candidates in Mallee, Nichols and Indi in the next federal election, and as I said, perhaps even Gippsland. Now, we will use, even if we get no one elected, we will use the votes that we get in that election to decide and recognise where where state formation is popular and where it's not popular, and that's based on what the New England people did right and wrong. They included a large population centre where it was not demonstrably popular in that referendum. We won't do that. We will win that referendum, and I think very comfortably, and that referendum will be used to cause state formation, and that will happen.
David Landini, he is the driving force behind the Riverina State Party. Certainly the concept of a state, as he was saying, isn't brand new. He's actually basing a lot of the work they're doing back on 1967, a big push to get the state of New England set up in New South Wales. But David not going small on this, suggesting that Mallee, Nichols, Indi, even into Gippsland as well, on this side of the border, could all end up being part of the Riverina State. One texter coming in saying, I completely agree with the idea of breakaway states. Why should rural areas be governed by Melburnian idiocy? Pete says, political support for irrigated agriculture. I think this guy might get my vote.